generate more affordable housing. Finally, uniformity of district regulations and restrictions. This text amendment will result in updated regulations that are uniform within each zone district and even quite simplified in some places. Based on meeting these review criteria, Community Planning Development staff recommend that the committee move the modernizing parking requirements text amendment forward for consideration by the full City Council. Similarly, we also recommend that the committee forward the proposed DRMC amendments for consideration by the full City Council. That concludes our presentation. We're happy to get into questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Fritz, Justin, and Libby. While we're filling up the queue, not questions, but we would like to provide opportunity for Councilmember Parity and Councilmember Hines for any statements as two of the four sponsors.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And thank you, CPD. You guys, that was very fast and very amazing. A couple of things I wanted to highlight that are not in the slim slide deck that we saw today are that CPD staff spend 650 hours every year administering this bizarre tangled spaghetti bowl of parking numbers. It really is like algebra and it has no flexibility. So that's like a quarter or a third actually of the city planner, which we could really use in other ways, as we know. But in addition to that, the lack of flexibility can be a real problem because they have no ability to go up and down even by like 10 spaces. And sometimes for a particular building that can really kick the cost into problematic territory. And we just don't have any way to account for that because it's quite rigid. So it's really complex, takes a lot of time on everybody's behalf. And then what that leads to, and I've been thinking about this so much, is really not the outcome that we're looking for in any regard. So RTD did a study earlier this year because of the state bill passing, I think, that looked at the parking utilization at peak in residential buildings that were relatively near RTD park and rides. So not across the city, but big residential buildings. And they found that even at peak, an average of 40% of the spaces, or 50% if it was an affordable building, were vacant. And so what we're doing is we're forcing this parking to be built, but then it's not being utilized. And one thing that I know Councilmember Gonzalez-Gutierrez sort of teed this up for me, or maybe think this through, I guess. Landlords will often charge for parking. And so you have people who live in a building, one of those spaces was ostensibly built for them, but they don't have to buy the parking, and they may not if it's expensive. And so they may be parking out on the street while that spot that we forced the developer to build sits empty. So I just think that the other thing that we found is that oftentimes, builders are thinking about the market when they're deciding how much parking to provide, right? And so if you have a shopping center, it's never going to have no parking. They're going to build the parking. Hopefully we're moving away from that a little bit over time, but it's not as though you're going to suddenly have a ton of buildings with 0 parking spots. Most places are going to include parking. Are they going to maybe include 10 less spots if it makes it easier to lay out? Possibly, right? But this is an area where I think the market is reasonably trustworthy. And is sort of backed by requirements often by banks and insurers. They'll want to see parking in a building to feel that it's viable, that the units are going to rent out. So again, we're hoping to shift that gently over time, but it's not going to be like a dramatic move where suddenly we don't get any new parking built. It's just sort of taking this really onerous and heavy-handed, honestly, set of city quotas that I think are pretty arbitrary out of the equation and letting that be figured out in different ways. And then the other thing that I would say is that the parking that we do own and manage is the actual street parking. And so if people have concerns, which they do in a lot of neighborhoods validly, that street parking is hard to find, we should be thinking about how we're managing that, because that's the real issue and that's the parking that we own. I'm working with the East Colfax group that has been looking into a mobility or parking benefits district with the Streets Partnership. I think that's a great model. I'm hoping to move that forward for them. I haven't talked to any of you guys about that yet on council. I've talked to Councilmember Gonzalez-Gutierrez about maybe disallowing parking fees for residential buildings, which would potentially get more of those cars inside. So we could make the policy that we actually want to make, and this tool is not doing that. It's way too blunt and arbitrary and one size fits all while also being complex and out of compliance with state law. That's it. That's my speech. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
See what happens when you have multiple sponsors and you put
Sorry, I took as long as CPD. I should.
No, she presents all the talking points. So Councilmember Hines, I'm going to see if you have any of the talking points.
Mr. Downtown.
Mr. Downtown.
Mr. Downtown.
Yeah. Well, to the downtown point, we have gotten rid of
parking requirements downtown. Central Business District hasn't had any minimum parking requirements. Lodo, in the last year, we got rid of parking requirements. In Golden Triangle, we got rid of parking requirements in June of 2022. I would say we've had a whole lot of development in Golden Triangle since June of 2022 and today, and all of them have parking spaces. So, that's, we have some council members and members of the public who have a concern that we would never build a parking space again in our city if we got rid of minimum parking requirements. We have time, example after example after example of where we have gotten rid of parking requirements in our center city, and yet a whole bunch of parking has been built. And so in addition to the extensive wealth of information that Councilmember Parity shared, we're also in the conversation of, can we build more parking structures like the cultural center garage, which is available for everyone, for people who want to work or in the area who want to eat or go to the art museum in the area, or people who live in the area. So as different hours of the day cater to different constituent groups, if we have those sorts of parking structures in areas where there's a density that would support it, I think that is a better conversation than the disproportionate amount of time that's spent in the permitting process to do these parking calculations. It is like algebra. It's like higher level math to figure out. It's so complicated that the developers rely on CPD to create the Excel model that then they have to conform to. And so just getting that out of the way will help streamline our permitting process. Is one of the few talking points Councilmember Parity left out so that the rest of us could fend for good talking points. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you so much. And as one of the sponsors, I just want to say thank you. The partnership has been fantastic. The community outreach has been amazing, seeking input from community members. This does not remove parking requirements. It just removes parking minimums, reduces the amount of time and complexity from CPD, and also provides the opportunity for looking for parking one solutions, which are collaborative decisions on how you park in a way that is not taking up land, where we could be doing things to reduce our housing crisis. And with that, I'll go to the queue, and starting first is Council President, and followed by Council President Pro Tem.
Thank you. So thank you for the sponsors for your work on this. I don't think this is an easy topic. One of the most contentious things that happened when I was rezoning for ADUs, the first neighborhood, was parking. It had heated conversations. And I'll just say, I agree that we need to get rid of these. I just don't like this policy. And the reason why I don't is my council district is a unicorn. It really is. Like, if you talk to Scott Burton and if you talk to these planners, they're going to say the worst place that this is going to impact is Northwest Denver, and it already has. So I have more complaints in the lower part, so lower Sunnyside by where you and I, council member, have a border in Jefferson Park down kind of by Meow Wolf. And then in Lower Highland, down by Inca, by 38th Avenue, where I-25 and I-70 intersect, by Fox. And the reason why is that it dead ends down in there. So you hit I-25, you hit the railroad for Sunnyside, Inca, and Jefferson Park. But as the crow flies, it's within a quarter mile of transit. So if you were a crow, you could easily get there. But walking there, you would literally have to put your life in your hands. Yeah, in Jefferson Park. You have to go under by Meow Wolf, go down and under I-25, and then pop out on Walton Street on Auraria campus to get to rail. So I'll just say some of these comments in here, and we have in all of those areas, just except for one, Sunnyside doesn't have it, but all of those other areas have curbside access plans. So Lower Highland just went through a curbside access plan. Jefferson Park has had one from the stadium forever. And I think that we need to pair, to Councilman Parody, to your point, that we need other tools added. We need to look at our TDM in Dottie's regulations to make sure those are being enforced, because in these areas, I actually have TDM plans that should be being utilized, and they're not. So they're supposed to be provided other alternative transportation mechanisms, they're not. And so what you do is you have these apartment buildings being built in those three neighborhoods specifically, and there's mass tension, nasty note writing on cars, nasty emails to my council office, nasty emails amongst each other, fighting, and the reason why is if you're on Inca and Sunnyside, you have to go 4 blocks west to get out of the neighborhood because you're landlocked. You're landlocked on I-70 and 38. Same in Highland, same in Jefferson Park. So I will say for the rest of my council district, probably west of Federal, they're not going to like it because Tennyson has already seen mass redevelopment with not much parking. They're smaller lots, remember those 52 something, the small lot, and you didn't have to have parking on those. So those were in some of my council district. So I'm just going to say on behalf of my residents, there's some who are going to really like this and it's going to benefit. And there's some where actually there's going to be some probably heated emails that come in because it is such a problem. And I had a meeting with these 3 planners and CPD and with Dottie and CPD, because I was like, Dottie needs to be here because we need to manage our right of way. We're implementing on this side and they need to be at the conversation. So I thank you all. So Scott Burton is I'll just have to say his name. Scott Burton is a life send in my office. He and Gina know each other really well because of the emails that have gone on. And they have lessened some. Low-High just went through the curbside access management plan. The signs go up. People are upset because they had to get their permit and the signs weren't up yet. So it's a lot.
Yes.
So we've just been dealing with a lot. So I just had to go on the record and say that probably 80% of the city this is going to work well for, and Council District 1 is going to little suffer. So it is the way it is. It's the way the cookie crumbles. But I wouldn't be doing right by my constituents if I didn't acknowledge that. Thank you.
Council President.
Yeah.
Council President Pro Tem, then Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you. And I think the answer is yes, but I just wanted to, when I was looking at the map, I think about the RTD light rail stations that run through that have large parking lots. This would apply to any development that would come to those light rail station parking lots. They would have to, they would have no parking requirements or?
Correct. It would apply to all land uses in the city.
Okay. I figured it was a yes. I just wanted to make sure. There's 4 that run through the district, and I know that there are 2 light rail stations that are being looked at for possible development. And I think that the tension that has come between the neighborhood and that light rail stop is very real, and just wanted to ask for clarification. So again, those will probably be conversations that will be coming up for the future.
Council President Pro Tem, I would say that for those developments, even though the parking minimums that currently exist would not continue, there is nothing within this ordinance that would say for those developments within a TOD development that they do not have parking. And so the dialogue would be from what is the expectation or requirement for the TDM process with Dottie, as well as the existing conditions for the development. And so our message is this is a compilation of what the state is requiring, what we're requiring, but also Dottie still has a TDM requirement, and there's still going to be involvement of your office and all of our offices, ensuring that we have smart transportation steps, and then the banks and everything will still require some parking.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you. I think also maybe just the naming of modernizing parking requirements. I think some of that branding as this has been coming through, or, people know that this is part of the conversation. It's taking a little bit to be able to bring people along as far as what that means. And it, I think, puts more hesitation in people's just know. Had a few calls about it, just around the name alone. I have a Another question. So there are no penalties if developers choose to put in more parking.
Correct. There are some areas where we have existing maximum parking standards, and those will remain. But yeah, we're not restricting that, and we're not adding any new maximum parking ratios.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, there are definitely people that would advocate for parking maximums. That's definitely not in this bill. I may be one of those people, but not today.
Not today.
I
Okay.
want to let folks know we have about 9 more minutes. This is a voting action item. And so, Council President Pro Tem, continue with your question.
I know. I just wanted that to be out there and on the record that is not, that there aren't penalties for maximum parking and that there are no maximum parking requirements. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Nathan just wants to clarify.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, hi there. Nathan Boak, Senior City Planner with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. I manage our transportation demand management program. There is a slight penalty if you significantly overpark your development over the minimums today. There's an existing rule that you have to do additional TDM strategies. So there's no fee or anything like that. It's just an additional TDM strategy that you'll have to do. So a slight penalty if you significantly overpark your development.
What is significantly overpark?
There's a calculation and it's based on different parts of the city, but it's pretty significant. And then you just have to do basically one additional TDM strategy. So I wouldn't say the penalty is too impactful.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very helpful. Thank you very much. And Councilmember Cash.
I'm going to need about 45 minutes. Can we go over here?
We'll give you all the time you need, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hardly. So I'm wondering, do we have any, at this point, kind of historical information on areas like Councilman Hines has been talking about in the triangle where there's no minimums, but they're parking? And I'm wondering how much are they parking compared to what the normal required parking minimum might have been?
Councilmember, if I could give an example of, so I purchased a 1950 Logan in the Uptown neighborhood. There were 141 condominium units. It was zone CMX 12, which is in the weeds. That's for Council President because she loves zoning.
I did.
CMX 12 requires 0.75 parking spaces per unit. So 141 units times 0.75 is about 103 units. That was the required, and this was back in 2005 when the building was completed. Instead of the 103 units, which were the minimum, they built a little over 200. So 202 units, parking units were built. So this is a while ago, but this gives you an example of that there was a parking minimum and they doubled it.
Yeah. Are we collecting that type of information? Do we know how this thus far, the lack of minimums plays out?
What we've seen so far is that it's a great question. We haven't done that comparison of looking back at what the minimums were before we took it away in certain areas of downtown. It's a good idea to do. What we've seen is where we don't require them now and the developments coming through, providing hundreds of spaces on top of when nothing was required, but several hundred spaces per development. But you ask a good question.
But we don't know how it would compare to our minimums at this point.
To the old minimums without them being removed? Yeah, we don't have, we have the numbers that we could take a look at, but we haven't done that comparative analysis.
Do we know from other jurisdictions that have removed minimums, what they report as how it's built out?
Yeah, I think in Austin specifically, well, we interviewed planners from a couple peer cities. It's detailed in the background report. I think what Austin said is that they saw about 30% reduction in spaces in a typical multifamily development.
Okay.
But that's what they told us. We don't necessarily have that data to go through.
Okay, thank you very much.
And CPD, would you be willing to share with Councilmember Cashman the presentation you gave to the planning board? Because I think the first couple slides did have a few Denver examples of the parking minimums and then the actual parking that was installed. Just some
absolutely.
additional Denver data points.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And my ask would be as much information like that we can gather just as an appendix. I think those are valid questions from Councilmember Cashman. There is, this information exists. I'm not sure how extensive your search should be as far as identifying parking minimums when they occurred and now in spaces where they do not occur, what has been the difference and even how much above the parking minimum. So if you can bring maybe forward some of those examples, I think it would be very helpful for council members as they're discussing with community members throughout this process.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I'd be surprised if we didn't have that type of data.
Yeah.
I mean, did it turn out to be a catastrophe for any city? I'm kind of doubting
Correct.
it would. I mean, we all know the stories. I mean, businesses are going to build enough parking so their clients can get there to do business,
right.
or their residents, can carry on their normal life. And for most of us in Denver, normal life requires an automobile.
Yeah.
At this point, my hat's off to those that have figured out a way to carry on without one. And it's a great example that inspires, but I still use a vehicle. Most of my constituents do. And I think their concerns are not irrational. While I don't think their worst fears are going to play out, I don't think their concerns are irrational at all.
I think we have and should have within CPD great examples and data that can be provided as we move through this process. And I think it's not unreasonable of an ask. And I think we'll work with community planning and development to gather some of that data and add it to this presentation. If there are no other questions from council members as I look around the room.
I have one more.
One more question.
Sorry, one more. So as if we just approved the National Women's Soccer League to continue moving forward. So if this were to push through, any new stadiums that were built in Denver, they wouldn't have any parking requirements. Is that correct?
Correct. There wouldn't be a requirement for the minimum number.
And any venue. So like if we built a huge concert venue, they wouldn't have any requirements either, correct?
Correct. No
Okay.
requirements for all land uses in the city.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good questions. So there are 3 action items that we'll seek a motion in a block for those 3 items. Let me see, did you send me any wording or I just simply read the 250684, read all 3 as the block? I'll seek a motion on a block for 250684, 250685, and 250686. We'll need a motion and a second for those to go to a vote. Do I have a motion to accept those as a block? Approved, moved by Councilmember Parity, seconded by Councilmember Hines. Do we need a vote by acclamation or can we do a thumbs up that this is ready to go to the floor? I'm seeing all thumbs up. We do have a quorum with no other questions, no other points of